To me, it's always very interesting to see how various series and videos perform on the channel, and it seems like my videos profiling 2025 NFL rookies are hit or miss. One of them will do well, and the other will completely bomb. Hopefully today's video is a little bit more intriguing so you guys enjoy it, as we're going to talk about a former 3-star quarterback who ended up transferring schools, switching positions, becoming one of the best players in school history, and is now a trendy second-round pick for the Denver Broncos. His name is RJ Harvey, and he truly has an unbelievable story. A couple of years ago, he was about to quit football, he had to completely change positions, and he was doubted. Now he's one of the most hyped up rookies in the NFL and could do a lot of damage for Denver this fall. Today we're going to talk about RJ Harvey's incredible story, go through how he got to this point, and what he brings to the table. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you didn't support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of RJ Harvey. In order to understand how Harvey got to this point, let's first go back in time. He grew up in the city of Orlando, Florida, and Robert Harvey always wanted to be a star football player. As far back, RJ always had a football in his hand, as he loved the game since childhood, and it was also a time to bond with his dad. You could say football has been part of the family for quite some time, as his dad had a pretty cool story, as he walked on at Bethune-Cookman as a defensive back, and ended up starting a couple of years there. The game would make a lot of sense to RJ, and he said, quote, "I've been playing football since I was 5, and I just loved running around. My dad taught me all I need to know about football, and has trained me since I was younger, and I've loved the game ever since." His dad said RJ was also always a football player, and he played both sides of the ball in Little League, and he sort of just succeeded wherever he was. The first Saturday morning when he was registered for flag football, he creaked open his parents' door, woke his dad up, dressed in his cleats, and said he was ready to go. RJ was a crazy athlete, but there was one position he loved more than the others, and that was quarterback. He did play a little bit of running back in flag football, but eventually they moved him to quarterback, and he never played anything else. What's also fun is near his house in Orlando, there was a swampy area that some of the year had water, and other times of the year was dry, and when it was dry, it was a ditch, and that's where he grew up, hung out with his friends, and most importantly, practiced football. That was known as the ditch. There were also other athletic roots in his family, as one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in modern boxing history, Roy Jones Jr., is actually his cousin. Eventually, he became the starting quarterback for the Edgewater Eagles, and through 3 years on the varsity squad, he went from a raw talented player to one of the top quarterbacks in the state and a Power 4 recruit. But it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows for RJ, as in his first year starting, Edgewater lost all 10 of their games in 2016 by a margin of 41 points per game. The Eagles were shut out 7 times, but Harvey was leading his team through it all, and he never gave up no matter what the scoreboard read. They ended up hiring a new head coach, and the Eagles had a new program. They went from 0-10 to then claiming a district title after a 9-3 season. Coach Duke said, quote, "RJ was just somebody who I wanted our program to be all about. He handled his business in the classroom, in the weight room, and on the field. He was just super consistent." His head coach said he was a true dual-threat quarterback who could make all the throws and was electric with the ball in his hands. Also, he had a lot of intelligence. In high school, he had a couple of big-time teammates, as he became really close with a receiver by the name of Christian Leary, who ended up becoming a 4-star, and they created football lives for themselves there in that ditch, and at some point they said they were going to make it to the pros. Also, a guy who came later than him at high school was CJ Baxter, who was a huge blue-chip running back recruit. As a junior, he combined for over 3,000 yards with 35 touchdowns. Then as a senior, he got even better, throwing for 1,800 and running for 1,400, and he had 48 total touchdowns. The team reached the state playoffs with a 12-2 record, and RJ had successfully revitalized it. But in terms of his recruitment, he wasn't exactly a national prospect, but he wasn't an unknown either. Numerous colleges tried to recruit him out of high school, including Florida State and UCF, but they all wanted him to play running back. Ultimately, there was just one knock on his game and about him being a quarterback. His coach said, quote, "It wasn't about the speed, it wasn't about the arm strength, it was all about how tall he was." But Harvey did not want to be a running back. He would dig his heels into the dirt and say that he wanted to just be a quarterback. Eventually, he decided to commit to Virginia over offers from North Carolina, Syracuse, and Georgia Tech, and he brought blazing speed to the quarterback position. Apparently, he clocked in at 4.41 in a 40-yard dash time at a regional opening event, and man, that is blazing. He said, quote, "It was always a dream of mine to play Power 5 football and compete at the highest level, and it's always been my dream to go to the NFL.
According to 24/7 Sports, RJ Harvey was a 3-star recruit, the number 36 dual-threat quarterback, and the 1,581st best player in the class of 2019. So, how would he end up doing at UVA? Let's take a look. So when RJ arrived in Charlottesville, Virginia for the 2019 football season, he was buried on the depth chart and would not play at all as a freshman. After redshirting, he ended up deciding to leave Virginia, saying, quote, "I was homesick. I was up there in Charlottesville, and it was a small town, and there wasn't a lot to do. Not like Orlando. Honestly, I just wanted to come back home." He ended up getting a little bit of a recruitment, as both Florida State and UCF went after him, but the same coaches he knew during his high school recruitment were still at UCF, so he decided to commit there. He wasn't supposed to be a running back, at least in his mind, as he had played quarterback his entire life, but he would get told to move. UCF head coach Josh Heupel insisted that if Harvey was coming to UCF, he was going to be a running back. Harvey said, quote, "When I got to UCF, I didn't even know how to take a handoff. I'm serious, I didn't. I never had to do it before because I was always handing the ball off." He ended up joining the Knights as a walk-on back in August of 2020, but he had a promise from Coach Heupel that if he played well, he would get a scholarship. He ended up busting his tail in practice, but in total in 2020, he played 3 snaps. 3 snaps went for 3 yards, and that was it. And then Josh Heupel left and took the job at Tennessee. But Josh Heupel earned some respect in my eyes, as Harvey said, quote, "He kept his word. He left in January of 2021, but before he left, he put me on full scholarship." Things were starting to look on the up and up for RJ, but unfortunately, he would hit the biggest roadblock of his football career as he tore his ACL in the summer of 2021, and he said, quote, "I didn't want to play football anymore." Things were very difficult for RJ at this point, and he'd have to continue to bounce back. He contemplated quitting, but because his family was nearby, they helped get him back on track, and he ended up actually being a gem from them, and that move from quarterback to running back would pay off. Ultimately, that would happen as he was fighting with Isaiah Bowser for the starting job back in 2022, and Harvey ended up blowing up. He had his best game of the season against number 20 Cincinnati, as he had 84 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game, and then followed it up with 151 yards and a touchdown against Memphis. All of a sudden, RJ Harvey was cooking, and he finished the rest of the regular season, and he ended up having a touchdown against USF, and then helped them go to the American Championship, and then play Duke in a bowl game. In total, Harvey finished with 796 yards with 5 total touchdowns, and he also caught 22 passes out of the backfield. But now that UCF was moving on to a new conference and moving on to a new starting running back, he had his opportunity. In 2023, he became one of the best backs in college football as he went nuts in his first 4 games, having 5 combined touchdowns against Kansas State, Villanova, Boise State, and Kent State. The Big 12 slate would prove to be a little bit more difficult for him to score, but he went over the 100-yard mark in 5 straight games against Kansas, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State. And in that game against the Cowboys, he ended up actually being better than Ollie Gordon, as RJ had 206 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was now becoming a household name, and to finish off the season, he'd go out strong. He had 2 touchdowns against Texas Tech, and then 136 yards and 2 touchdowns in a win over Houston. UCF would end up getting their 6th win because of that too, and they would play Georgia Tech in their bowl game, where he'd end up finishing with 120 yards. In total, RJ Harvey had 1,416 yards with 16 touchdowns, and he averaged 6.3 yards per carry. This put him on pace to being one of the better players in the country, but for some unknown reason, he got no All Big 12 consideration. I mean, his numbers on the ground were 3rd most in program history, and his rushing touchdowns were 2nd in UCF history. He did contemplate declaring for the NFL draft, but he decided to come back for one more season, as NFL projections had him as a 6th or a 7th round pick, and he didn't want to go out like that. Unfortunately, Harvey's talent would be a little bit wasted in 2024, as his goal was a Big 12 championship, but after a 3-0 start, they would completely fall apart. They lost 8 of their last 9 games, but Harvey went berserk. He combined for nearly 500 yards and 8 touchdowns in their first 3 games against Sam Houston, New Hampshire, and TCU, and then would finish the season on a tear, as he'd end up having 2 touchdowns against Iowa State, 2 against BYU, 3 against Arizona, 3 against Arizona State, 2 against West Virginia, and in his final game, 1 against Utah. He also went for over 100 yards in his last 6 games, and Harvey truly had a memorable year. He finished with a total of 1,577 yards with 22 touchdowns, and he also had 3 touchdown catches through the air. Harvey was truly special, and now he was going off to the NFL. So yeah, he ended up getting invited to the combine, had good numbers, and ended up testing well, so now he was supposed to be a day 2 or day 3 pick, probably in the day 2 range. Guys like Travion Henderson, Omar Hampton, and Ashton Genty kind of stole the show, but ultimately Harvey would go at pick number 60 in the second round to the Denver Broncos. He becomes part of an exclusive club for running backs to be drafted by Sean Payton, as this dates back to 2006. Apparently he was Denver's quote pet cat, as the Broncos traded back twice in the second round to snag him at pick number 60. A lot of people were really excited about this pick, and Denver's quarterback Bo Nix even reached out to Cam Martin, UCS running back coach, and asked, "How's RJ Harvey?" The answer, I guess, was good because he was selected, and while on paper it may not be a hand-in-glove fit, as Peyton typically prefers guys who are versatile and catch passes out of the backfield, the Broncos apparently did their homework and really liked RJ. He definitely has plenty of talent, and he's aiming to be as good as Darren Sproles or Alvin Kamara. He said, quote, "Definitely want to be like those guys. I want to be like Darren Sproles, as he went crazy with the Saints, and I want to be better than those guys, so I'm going to work every day, get better, and prove to myself and all the vets and coaches that I can make an immediate impact in the league." What's both good and bad is that at 5'8", he's in the middle of Sproles and Kamara, but he has tree trunks for legs, and he ran a 4.40 40-yard dash. I think the biggest knock on Harvey's game is going to be his ability to catch passes out of the backfield, but if he can do that, I think he could be a super steal in this year's draft class and make a lot of teams look silly. He can obviously run and is a really good athlete, but can he catch passes out of the backfield and be a part of that style of offense? That's to be determined, but I'm not going to bet against him after everything he's gone through, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. But if you're a Broncos or a UCF fan, what do you think of RJ Harvey? How do you think he'll do in the league? And which rookie should I cover in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you can support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.